ABRSM Piano Marksheet for Grade 6. The following video shows the ABRSM Marksheet for a Grade 6 piano exam recently taken by one of my students. By looking closely at the examiner's comments, you will be able to see what they are looking out for. Although we could obviously not video the real exam, you can see a video of a live mock exam which I gave this student just before their exam, with my own comments and estimated marks, which might be interesting to compare. First piece, Rondo from Sonata in C by Mozart. A good tempo was established at the start, although pulse suffered slightly during the hands-together semiquaver passages. A robust tone was offered, which became slightly harsh in places, but there was some welcome colouring throughout. Aside from some phrases where there were small slips and there was some instability, notes were secure. 25 marks out of 30. It is interesting to note here that the getting the notes right was the last thing mentioned by the examiner. Second piece, Valse Lente by Mericanto. Tonal and dynamic variety were utilized effectively from the start, and there was a clear understanding for the melodic line, which was played lyrically. Tempo had the necessary fluidity, although this was perhaps over-exaggerated in places. Small slips were recovered from quickly. Overall, an emotive account. 26 marks out of 30. Again, notice the elements of musicality are emphasized over note accuracy. Third piece, Cruella de Vil. A purposeful tempo was presented with some deftly played syncopations. Articulation was crisp and phrasing idiomatic. Tone was rather strident in places, and there were errors in the final section, but this was an involved and characterful performance overall. 27 marks out of 30. Interestingly, this piece got a distinction at Grade 6 despite the fact that there were errors. Scales. A scale of E-flat major. Scales were played at a good tempo and with mostly even tone. The hands were sometimes out of sync, but notes were mostly secure. Small slips in the chromatic scale, arpeggios were all played accurately. 19 marks out of 21. Maybe you are starting to see a pattern here with the examiner's comments. It's not just about the notes. With regard to scales, tempo and tone also play a role in the final mark. Sight reading. pitch outline was in place despite errors, but there were a number of rhythmical inaccuracies that affected flow. 16 marks out of 21. The rather low mark here is mainly due to the lack of continuity rather than wrongly pitched notes. In sight reading, keeping the pulse going is of great importance. Oral tests. I'd like you to repeat the upper part of a two-part phrase, which I'm going to play twice. Okay, so here is your key chord. And your starting note. And there are 2 beats in a bar. 1, 2, 1, 2. And here it is a second time. A small error in the sung response and the sight singing needed one prompt. The 20th century piece wasn't identified and the clapped rhythm had errors, but all other tests were answered correctly. 14 marks out of 18. A pass at oral can be achieved even if there are quite a few mistakes. To put it in the official ABRSM wording, strengths outweighed the weaknesses. As I said at the beginning, you can watch this student doing a mock exam which I gave her just before the real one and compare the comments and marks I gave with those that you have just seen.